Is there a need for an interpreter? Everybody's good so far? Okay, as you can tell, welcome, but my voice comes and goes. So our board clerk is going to be helping me with the agenda tonight. I also can't hear very well, so you might need to speak up. 2.0, call to order. 3.0, roll call. Emmanuel Lopez,
Here.
Merced Zamora,
Here.
Freddie Espinoza,
Here.
John Alvarez,
Here.
Sabrina Gomez,
Here.
and myself, Alice Lopez. Can we please stand for the flag salute? Turn to the north, you'll lead.
You guys ready? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Ready? Let me know if you can't hear me. 4.0, adoption of agenda. 4.1, adoption of the agenda is requested as presented with addendum.
Motion with the addendum.
And second?
We have a motion by John Alvarez, second by Freddie Espinoza. Is that correct?
Yes.
Correct.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried 5-0.
5.0, consent calendar. 5.1, approval of the regular board meeting minutes for January 28, 2025.
A motion?
Second.
We have a motion by Freddie Espinoza, second by John Alvarez. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried 5-0.
5.2, approval of release warrants dated January 30th, 2025, in the amount of $322,330.79.
Motion.
Second.
We have a motion by John Alvarez, second by Sabrina Gomez. Is that correct?
Yes.
Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried 5-0.
5.3, approval to attend school safety symposium on March 5th, 2025 at Visalia Convention Center.
A motion? Second.
We have a motion by Freddie Espinoza, second by Merced Zamora. Is that correct?
Yes. Correct.
Yes?
Correct. Correct.
Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried 5-0.
6.0, awards presentations. 6.1, student board member report.
Good evening, Board President Lopez, school board members, Superintendent Mendez, school administrators, teachers, and community members. My name is Emmanuel Lopez, and I am the Associated Student Body President at Farmsville High School. It is my pleasure to be here tonight as a representative of the entire school body at FHS. Tonight, I would like to share some activities happening at FHS. In athletics, boys soccer have gone 14-6-2, which is very impressive for the teams they have played. Their league record is 6 wins, 0 losses, and 1 tie, putting them in first in league, which makes them back-to-back league champs. What a season for the boys leading into playoffs this Friday, February 14th. Last game of the season is today, as well as against Delano. In other sports news, girls basketball and girls soccer have a great season with both teams in second place in the league, and both teams have made the playoffs. We hope all our sports make it deep into the playoffs. Good luck, Aztecs. In extracurricular activities, the high school had our 8th grade invasion on Friday. It was a great success with many smiling faces and a connection for our future Aztecs. There were many students who signed up for multiple sports and clubs. 8th graders toured the campus and were taken around classes, the library, and got to see our farms. Thank you to all the teachers and CTE programs for demonstrating high school pathways. We had many great comments for the students about that day, and we want to continue welcoming our 9th graders when the time comes. On to FFA. They had a meeting today, and with that, they talked about their next projects that we have recently seen when they came last time. I was also informed that they are having their annual dress up week consisting of Twin Day, PJ Day, just like a Disney character, and anything but a backpack day. They will also be having lunch activities. What an exciting month to be an Aztec. In closing, I would like to thank the school board and Superintendent Mendez for the opportunity to share great things and happening at the Farmsville High School. Go Aztecs.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Lopez. I understand you have another commitment, so you're free to leave at any time.
You're free to go.
Thank you so much. Permiso, con permiso. Willing to push my chair?
Take care.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'll see you guys the next board meeting.
Okay.
Sir. 8.0, public comments. Members of the public may address the board on any agenda item or other items of interest within the subject matter jurisdiction of the board, before or during the governing board's consideration of the item. The board is not able to discuss or take action on any item not appearing on the agenda. Pursuant to board policy, the board may limit individual comments to no more than 3 minutes and individual topics to 20 minutes. Please begin your comments by stating your name.
Yes, Board, the board asks that during public comment, everyone be respectful to speakers. Members of the public should not interrupt or interject while another person is giving their public comment. During public comments, there shall be no use of foul language. Should a member of the public have a concern about a specific employee, we ask that you direct those concerns to myself after this meeting so that the concerns can be handled through the proper procedures. Please do not use any employee names or student names during public comments. School board and public, we do have one, Mrs. Melissa Bourne, agenda item 13.6.
Hi, how are you guys this evening?
Good, thank you.
It will be quick. I am the public safety instructor at the high school. And I have been told that the program will be getting cut. I'm not here to cause any problems about it, so please take that off the board. I do want to say a couple things, though. I do have, and I actually have the paper with me, I do have the most students of any CTE program. I also have the most completers. I have the most kids going on. I'm not sure what's going on. We have a projected growth in law enforcement and corrections of 7% and 7.7% respectively, which is pretty large. So there's going to need people to go on. And probably the biggest thing, I'm not sure financially how it makes good sense. As you guys all know, Trump is going to get rid of our federal education. I get nervous up here. The Federal Education Department. Yet he is adding money to CTE. And just yesterday, it was announced, and I'll go ahead and read it to you, that the process of reversing both the information collections on the Perkins State Plan Guide and the Consolidation Annual Report Guide, basically that they're going to reverse everything, and that CTE, it won't require the amount of paperwork it has over the last, or what was going to be required. I guess it was implemented that a lot more paperwork, a lot more was going to be required for funding. That has been reversed as of yesterday. So Perkins will be back in stated like it was, and again, less paperwork, and I have that, or you can look it up. So again, I have the largest amount of students by far. I have had kids coming crying. I play a big role with these kids, and it's not just during the school. I have Bible study at my house, which is not a school thing, I know, but students come to it, on Sunday nights. I have been to pick up students at 2 a.m., 3 a.m. I've helped kids expunge their records so that they can go ahead and serve in the military, and they have. I've done a lot of that. I've helped a lot of kids get out of gangs. Alice knows, my mom is a juvenile attorney, so she works with me hand in hand, and we go ahead and we help these kids go through a lot. Just enable them to go ahead and be employed and be a productive member of society. I understand that a lot of people don't exactly know what I do, but I take very complex things and make them simple for kids to understand. And I try to keep them out of trouble until their brain fully develops. in order that they can go on into these careers. A lot of cross-curricular. By the way, and I didn't get my trip approved for the Hornet, which I was really bummed, because that does fit standards. But that's maybe next board meeting. But that's just basically, if you guys would look and see how the law was reversed yesterday about Perkins and the fact that there will be more money coming into CTE, whereas there will be a reduction of money coming into other areas. Financially, it doesn't make sense to me. I'm gonna be one of the ones, because I have the most completers, that's gonna bring in the most money. And I understand I'm not fired, I'm not saying that, but I don't understand the financial logistics of it. So, you guys are gonna decide which side. I'm not gonna, like I said, I'm not gonna throw a big fuss, but at least for my kids' sake, because they are my kids, I would like to keep them around. You can ask anybody on campus, my classroom is always full, always. With parents, I write letters for kids that are going to court, I am there. So, and I think it's all important. So, that's it, and thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
8.1, superintendent comments.
Well, good evening. I want to express our gratitude to all Farmersville Unified School District staff, parents, community members. Thank you for your dedication, specifically our staff members, for providing effective instruction and learning opportunities to all of our students. Our main goal is to create a smooth transition, TK through 12, and that's one of our biggest pieces this year, is bringing everybody together so that we can have ample time to discuss and talk about future plans. Currently, we're holding K-3 transition forums at Hester and Snowden School, providing opportunities for parents to engage and ask questions and participate in meaningful discussion regarding K-3 schools. Our elementary teams are continuing to hold successful kindergarten registration nights, welcoming new students and families to our district. We heard a little bit about our high school basketball, soccer, and wrestling. They're closing out their seasons with the potential playoff berth on the horizon. And then our FHS wrestling, I don't think it was mentioned, but we are hosting our CIF CS Central Section Division 5 Championships this Friday through Saturday. So it's been a real pleasure to go out there and harbor a little bit of the cold during our soccer games and enjoy the beautiful warmth of our gym when we're going back and forth. But it's been a pleasure to see community members go out there and support. If you're a soccer fan and you know what a matraca is, make sure you don't sit next to someone that's sounding that during a soccer game. Still, my ears are still ringing, but we had a good time out there. So we recognize that by collaborating, we strengthen our dedication to meeting the needs of our community. Great things are happening. Farmersville up.
Thank you, Mr. Mendez.
9.0, people to be heard. 9.1, approval of facility use request for Farm Boys 3 Wrestling Group to use Farmersville High School Gym on Saturday, May 3rd, 2025.
Is there a motion?
Motion. Motion
Oops, sorry.
with the recommendations.
Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion by John Alvarez, second by Merced Zamora. Is that correct?
Yes.
Correct.
And this is for the use of the gym? All those in favor?
Aye.
There's no waiver. It's just, they're just requesting use. Thank you.
Okay. 10.0, K through 8 issues. 10.1, approval to attend Regional Early Childhood Home Visitor Conference on May 14th through the 16th, 2025 at Pacific Grove, California.
Motion.
Second?
We have a motion by John Alvarez, second by Sabrina Gomez. Are there any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried 5-all.
10.2, approval of Snowden updated school plan for student achievement.
My motion?
Second, I'm sorry.
Okay, we have a motion by Freddie Espinoza, second by John Alvarez. Is that
Yes.
correct?
Correct.
Yes?
Yes.
Correct.
Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried 5-0.
10.3, approval of Insight Pro Youth Insight Service. Motion?
Second.
I have a motion by Sabrina Gomez, second by John Alvarez. Are there any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried 5-0.
10.4, approval of 8th grade trip to Island Water Park on May 30th, 2025 at Fresno, California.
I motion. Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Espinoza, second by Mr. Zamora. Are there any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried 5-0.
10.5, approval of Sequoia for Youth Science Camp on February 18th through the 21st, 2025 at Lake Cahuilla, Three Rivers, California.
I motion.
Second?
We have a motion by Mr. Espinoza, second by Ms. Gomez. Are there any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried 5-0.
11.0, high school issues. 11.1, approval of FHS golf trip to Avila Beach Golf Resort on March 12th, 2025 at Avila Beach, California.
Motion.
Second.
We have a motion by John Alvarez, second by Merced Zamora. Is that correct?
Correct.
Yes.
Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried 5-0.
11.2, approval of Key Club Division community meetings every Saturday from February 15th, 2025 through May 2025 at Plaza Park and Golden West High School, Visalia, California.
Motion.
Second?
We have a motion by Mr. Espinoza, second by Ms. Gomez. I was going to say Galindo again. Are there any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried 5-0.
11.3, FHS WASC presentation.
Ready to go.
He's ready. I know.
Good evening, school board members, Board President Lopez, Superintendent Mendez, community members, and district employees. My name is Jesus Gonzalez. I'm the proud principal at Farmersville High School. And this evening, I'm going to be presenting and giving a review on the WASC progress report that we've been working on. So, a couple of things that we have been working on over the course of the last 8 months. I'd like to kind of back up a little bit and just give a little context to what WASC is for any members that may not be familiar with the high school WASC process. So WASC stands for Western Association of Schools and Colleges. It's accrediting commission for schools. Why is accreditation important? And this is very important for all of us to recognize the importance of this accreditation as it ensures continuous school improvement. And it also validates the quality of education for students. So for the high school accreditation status, kind of going back 2 years ago, there was a 6-year self-study done. And during that 6 year study, the accreditation team came to the high school and went through and visited all the classes, looked through the report, and during that time, they felt that our high school was going to be placed on a 2-year probationary period of accreditation, and that's where we're at currently. That accreditation will end this summer, June 30th, 2025, but it's not going to end because we're going to do well with our accreditation. So the goal that we have is obviously to remove the probationary status of our school, put us back on track to the 6-year cycle, which would mean next year would be the mid-year cycle of year 3 if we would have gotten that 6th year. So next steps is going back to the mid-year cycle off probation, and I have a easier form here for you to see. So the top you can see where the study started 2 years ago, 2022-23, And what you want, obviously, is to go straight down that line to get a 6-year study, status, but we actually got moved from the red circle to the yellow circle, which put us in a 2-year probationary period. That's where we're currently at now. The goal is to move into that mid-year cycle, either a 1-day or 2-day visit next year, and put us back on track with our probationary period. So here are some of the findings. The report that they actually provided was a 42-page paper, which is found on our district website and school website. And reading through that report, I just kind of gave a report card at the very end, which kind of highlighted the areas that were highly effective. As you could see, the markings of 10% of what they felt during their visit, effective 25%, somewhat effective 50%, and ineffective 10%. The goal obviously is to increase all areas to highly effective or effective ratings on their next review visit. So the areas of improvement that they had for us, there were specifically 7 areas they talked about for the school to focus on, encompassing everything else that we should be doing at the same time. One was to ensure the fidelity of the WASP process. So what that really meant was ensuring that everybody had a hand in that, teachers, administrators, stakeholders, and I'll talk briefly about how we did that this past year. Involving stakeholders, which I just mentioned, improving data analysis, so how are we using data at our school site to inform our instructional practices, developing our improved DOK, or depth of knowledge, this kind of goes hand in hand with rigorous curriculum, including training on evidence of student learning for our teachers, improved collaboration with our feeder schools. We just highlighted and mentioned something that has been going on here for a very long time, 8th grade invasion, and other means of connections with our feeder schools, counselors, parents, of course. Last week, for example, we just had our parent evening transitional meeting, and we had a great turnout at the junior high, and obviously we kind of rolled that into where we have now. This week, we actually have evening meetings with our parents coming through and registering their students for next year. And the last one was about improving support services for our English learners. So the things that you see here, the 7, I would probably say that we've worked collectively as a school to focus our teacher training. And if you visit our school lately, we actually have a teacher classroom. They don't get tardies, but they do have to attend weekly staff meetings. And if you walk in there, there's not desks, there's tables, chairs for adults. The walls are covered with student learning curriculum, if you will. If you go to any classroom in elementary site, you walk in there, you'll see maybe a kid calendar, a number calendar. Well, these areas that you see on the screen, these are the things that we have on our wall, our learning objectives for our teachers. So anytime you'd like to come out and visit, that is our teacher training room. So I'll just give the highlights on the WASP progress report that we have submitted. So it has a couple of key components to it. One is our FHS overview, our school, what we offer, curriculum, classes and such. Then we have our significant changes and developments, and those have been quite large. If you think about 2 years ago where we were at, we had a different superintendent, a different assistant superintendent, a different principal, different vice principal, different academic coach, and a different CT coordinator. So all those positions have changed in the last 2 years in other areas also. Performance indicators, again, back to data. So we look at it and it lines up to our SIPSA plan. So we've focused on not only the results of our CAS and our CAS data, also our LPAC data and such, and also our STAR reading and math data. We also identified areas of growth that we need. We know across the board, obviously, it's all about student academic growth. So we focus on those areas and how we're gonna get there. In the report, progress on the action plan. Here's the beauty of this action plan. Oh, I'm always at one click behind, I apologize. The progress of the action plan, this is how, and I think all of you are familiar with when I talk about the WASC, is do we know what's working well? Do we also recognize what's not working well, and what's your plan of action for it? When they come and visit, they're not looking for perfection, they're looking for progress. But the biggest thing is that you have to indicate what you are measuring and how you're progressing with it. So we have indicated that. We also have our school-wide learning outcomes, which we have aligned to the WASP. They give you an overview of what do you want students to be able to do when they graduate from high school. So those indicators are in our WASP report. We spell those out in a nice, large table so that we are definitely aligned to what they want us, our graduates, to be able to do. Not when they enter, but when they leave us. Stakeholder collaboration, again, that's something that they have highlighted. And I would say from last May, when the process started, under the leadership of our vice principal, Mr. Billings, we had our first parent meeting back in May. I wasn't here yet. And then this year, we've had 4 others. So we've had 5 stakeholder meetings in collaboration to build this WASP report, which has been great. And also, of course, our remaining staff have been a big part of that. And we have aligned our resources and funding back to what I mentioned, LCAP, our SIPSA. It's all aligned to support student learning outcomes, which supports the WASP report. So some updating of where we're at now. So we have already uploaded the report to the WASP website, or sent it to them, if you will, on June 30th. And now we're anticipating the great visit in March 18th and 19th. It's going to be a 2-day visit with just 2 members of the WASP committee. One is an administrator from Clovis Unified, the other one's an administrator from Madera Unified. The day schedule hasn't been determined. They kind of send that out to me. I've already contacted the person, but they're going to send me what they would like to do during those 2-day visit. I anticipate that they're going to do what I would have done on my visits. One, you probably want to meet with a superintendent, assistant superintendent, teachers, and probably a parent group. So I would anticipate that first day on Tuesday, on the after school, they're probably going to want to meet with some of the parents, especially the ones that have been highly involved in the WASP report creation. And then the results are going to be shared back probably approximately about 4 weeks after. They're going to send us the great news that we're moving forward with our accreditation. So as far as the communication with our community and parent group, the communication is we already have the WASP report up on our school website. That is actually, I snipped that off our website. So we have the report, we have a quick links to the report also, and if I drop down from the parent menu. So we have 3 different places parents could see the report in its entirety. We just sent a parent square last week to notify all our parents. Obviously the board, this is I think the 2nd time, if not the 3rd time, that we've actually shared out with the school board about the progress of WASP. And at staff meetings with our teachers and our entire staff have been hearing the progress of that. If not weekly, but it's really often that we talk about WASP and what we're doing, how it ties in. So with that, I do want to say to our team that have been working really hard. As I came on board, our assistant principal, Mr. Billings, we put the project manager there, and our WASP leadership committee members, I first met them in July in Sacramento as they jumped on board to help with this process. Want to highlight them and the work that they've done, because they've also worked after hours, after school to come together, bring in ideas from their departments so we could embed that into our WASP report. And I also want to thank all our stakeholders, our entire staff on campus, our teachers, our parent group, our students that we had present during our WASP work, and our district office for the continued support and making the WASP report, progress report, what it is today, and of course for Farmersville High School. So with that, just kind of want to read our mission statement and our vision statement that we actually put together this year, as these are 2 or 4 pillars that we've been working on with our training with Solution Tree. So our mission statement, really proud of it because it really came together from our whole staff and parents because they got to vote on it. At Farmersville High School, we empower all students to excel academically, develop critical thinking skills, and become lifelong learners. Our vision statement, our vision at Farmersville High School is to empower students to be productive members of society with strong character who make a positive impact in their communities and the world. So we're thinking big. Again, these are 2 or 4 pillars that we've been working with. What I'm proud of the most about this is we did it together. Parents had input, our teachers, and our entire staff. So with that, do I have any questions about our WASP progress or report?
Mr. Zamora, any
None.
questions? Ms.
My
Mendoza?
wife was in the committee, so.
So you're well informed.
Okay.
Thank you for all that time.
Alvarez?
Yeah, last time we had the visit from WASP, They literally took groups of the community and asked them questions about what, and then the board, and I was the only one there, they asked me questions about what was to be done. So they're gonna tell you what they're going to do. You're gonna have a list of things, when they come back, they're gonna tell you what they want to do.
Correct.
So I think it's very important that everybody that's gonna be in those meetings, if they ask for those, to have that information, because it was not there before. It was just,
Absolutely. So great point. So for example, just going back 2 years ago, it was a 6-year visit. So usually you come in a team of about 6 or 7 to a school site. I've been on those committees where I've went out to visit another school, and you're absolutely right. You actually have a student group, a large student group, a parent group, a board group and such. This, not that they won't ask for that, but this could be a little bit smaller and quicker, just a 2-day, 2-person one. So I do anticipate if they ask for a parent group, it might be that Tuesday after school. Board members, it may be during the daytime. Our superintendent and such probably be during the workday if they ask for that, but they should be informed. What we want to make sure is the people that have been working with us all along, they're the ones that we're going to call. So in particular, Mr. Zamora, like your wife, that she could speak to it because she was there at all these meetings, or a lot of other parents or stakeholders. So we want to be very transparent of the people in the process. We just don't want to pull someone in and they're going to say, I have no idea. So we'll do that. We'll prepare as soon as Karen gets back to me and tells me what her day's going to look like. I'll work with those groups. Any other questions?
Gomez?
I just want to say thank you. This is perfect. And then to share the information in this way and point out the 7 things that we needed work on, those were eye-opening for me to see. So thank you.
Absolutely.
Yes, I want to say thank you also. I know that this was a big stressor on a lot of us, and also especially, parents with their students. So thank you, everyone that participated in making this happen, and we look forward to this next visit.
All right.
Dr. Gonzalez, your team is doing a fantastic job. I think bringing in our parents and the active opportunities they come in to disclose their feelings on what we want as our end product here at Farmers Unified is very important. You've done a fantastic job, both yourself and Mr. Billings and the rest of the team, so thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, 11.4, approval of Alvarez Air One LLC Farmersville Community Service Scholarship.
I motion. I second.
We have a motion by Freddie Espinoza, second by Merced Zamora. Is that correct?
Yes.
Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
abstain.
We have 401. Mr. Alvarez abstaining?
Yes.
Don't be making fun of me.
Okay, 12.0, curriculum. 12.1, approval of comprehensive school safety plans, CSSP, with corrections as indicated by superintendent.
Motion.
Second.
We have a motion by John Alvarez, second by Merced Zamora. Is that correct?
Yes.
Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried 5-0.
12.2, LCAP mid-year report presentation.
We'll give it a little moment. Good evening, board members, Superintendent Mendez. My name's Eduardo Ochoa, and I'm the Assistant Superintendent. So I will be giving an update on our mid-year LCAP. So as we work on the technical piece, just give you a little bit of background. 2 years ago, 2023, a new law was introduced about providing a mid-year report for LCAP. So the Local Control Accountability Plan is something that's spelled out in law that we need to do as a state to account for some of the LCFF monies, specifically the supplemental and concentration funds. We receive stakeholder input. So with our local context, we reach out to LCAP committee members, to staff, parents, students, and we get a variety of information to determine what are our priorities for our district. But then in our plan, we spell out what are those things that we're going to fund and introduce and make sure that become actions that are going to move the needle, so to speak, and make an impact on student learning, student outcomes. So this mid-year report is to show you where we are right now with the data that we have at our disposal, as well as update you on the implementation of said actions in the plan, as well as the funding expenditures so far by December of 2024. So this is truly a mid-year update, okay? Perfect. This is just a quick description here with our LCFF funds. These are not, the 37 million plus that you see here are not all the monies that go into the LCAP. So this is part of our base funding, but the supplemental concentration grants of 11 million, that does reflect what we need to account for within our actions. So something to keep in mind here is compared to the funding levels from 2023-24, the current 24-25 funding levels reflect the decrease of over 846,000 in total LCFF funds and an additional decrease of 612,000 plus in supplemental concentration grants for a total decrease of 1.4 million, okay? So when things like that happen, and some factors that influence the funding levels are attendance, and then the 3 student groups that account for the unduplicated pupil count funding, which are our foster youth, low-income youth, and students who are English learners. So if those counts decrease, that means our funding levels also decrease. So I'm gonna start with LCAP Goal 1. You will find that in your board packet, and I'm gonna point you to what I'm gonna try to summarize. There's a 41-page report. I'm not gonna go through each page, okay? But if you wanna follow along, I'm gonna try to synthesize that information as much as possible and just say, here's the information, what does it mean, okay? So that starts in section 12.2 of your board packet, and specifically the part in LCAP Goal 1 that I'm gonna refer to starts on page 2. So there are 3 goals in the LCAP. You'll find that there are 4 total goals in that report, only because we have one school that does receive some additional funding through equity multiplier. We're only required to include it in the LCAP, but it's not those actions are not funded by the LCFF. So I'm not gonna give an update on that. It's just required that it's included in that report. So you'll only see goals 1 through 3 that I'm gonna cover. So our goal 1 is student achievement as measured by a variety of metrics, including our state assessments like CASP and the LPAC, that's our English language proficiency test, as well as some local indicators like our benchmarks and some other enrollment pieces. So the metrics that did demonstrate growth for the first half of this year, or even going back to the spring when we received the scores over the summer, are CASP, that's our state test for academics in ELA, as well as math. And I'll give you some context, because this is something to really applaud our staff, the efforts, especially the students' performance, is that a normal growth is about 5 scale score points. In ELA, across all student groups, we had double-digit growth. So that's really good, right? We have room to grow, we do, and that's shown in our California School Dashboard. However, to see double-digit growth is a great sign, okay? And in math, we have a 6-point average growth across the student groups. That's also very positive. So it shows that we're oriented the right way now, and we're gonna make some acceleration to catch our students up, okay? But definitely worth applauding the efforts. CTE pathway completion also increased by about 54 students compared to the year before, so we now have 54 additional students that completed that. That's also influencing the college and career indicator because of our increased student scores on the state test, as well as the CTE completers. That means we have a higher success rate on the college and career indicator, which are all great signs, okay? Our participation in music and arts programs also have seen some positivity, because in K through 3, in those grade levels, we have our students participate in music. This year, in 4th through 6th grade at a Freedom Elementary School, we also have included an art teacher, and that additional teacher is now serving students. So we have increased numbers in participation in music and arts in those grade levels. So that's one of our goals, is make sure that students are participating and exposed to the arts, and we're showing some really good growth in that area. Much like from year to year, as we have been doing, the availability of state-adopted curriculum, all students have that available to them. So we're still at 100% on there, as well as our fully credentialed teachers. We actually saw about a 5% growth there. We are now at 96% of our teaching staff who are fully credentialed, and those who are not yet at that point are currently working on that, and also to clear their credentials. Which leads us to that final point of the appropriately assigned teachers. All 100% of our teachers are appropriately assigned. So even if they're working on their credentials, they have the proper authorization to teach their content area and the grade level. We did have some metrics, pardon me. We did have some metrics that showed some declines, not drastic, but I do want to highlight that. The CAST, this is the California Science Test. If you've taken a look at the California School Dashboard, you'll see that this is a brand new metric. So they don't have a color for it yet, as you would see on the dashboard if you're familiar with it. Blue and green, so they're making great progress. You got orange, yellow, and red. This one will not have a color until the coming year. And so what they're trying to do right now is calibrate those results. But even with the raw scores that we see, we saw about a 2% decrease in that. And so it's something to monitor, but it is still a brand new metric, and we'll see what this next cycle for our assessments will look like in the spring. The one that I do want to bring our attention to is the EL, the LPAC results. So specifically, on the LPAC, we have 4 levels. If a student scores very well, that is a level 4, a well-developed range. And so that's where we want our students to be, because that then triggers the next step of now they become reclassification eligible, which means that they no longer have to be in the English Learner Program and receive those services, that they are proficient enough and do not need the additional scaffolds and supports. So we want all of our students to reach level 4 on the LPAC. We actually saw this past year, spring of 2024, students dipped on the LPAC at a level 4 of about 3%. Okay, so decreased about 3%. We know some areas of growth, specifically in the designated ELD supports that the students receive. That will be an area of emphasis moving forward, especially in the coming year with professional development, looking at our systems, looking at the instruction that takes place during those times. So again, that'll be an area of emphasis. We are aware of that. That was not a surprise. And lastly, the state standard implementation. This is a local survey. Basically, we do a pulse check on this and say, where are we with our understanding of the state standards in all of the content areas? Science and math did increase in these areas, but the history, social science area did dip a little bit. Again, this is reflective of the spring 2024 survey. We're going to have another survey this coming spring, and I can assure you that the last several months there's been a heavy emphasis on understanding our state standards with a lot of the work that we're doing with our professional development, as well as our weekly work within our professional learning communities and teams. As far as actions and their implementation, I'm going to go through this piece pretty quickly. What I want to highlight here is the various columns you'll see on the far left is the action title. What is it specifically? This is a summary of that action. The budget expenditure, meaning by the end of the year, this is the amount of money allocated for that action. We also have mid-year expenditures. Again, by the end of December 2024, how much had we expended towards that action? And then whether the action has been fully implemented. Fully implemented means that it's in place. There's nothing else to do, right? So if it's, say, the action 1.1, classroom instructional aids, we've hired the instructional aids. The expenditures will come every month as we do payroll, okay? But it's fully implemented, the action's in place. So you'll see that most of these actions are fully in place. The ones that you see here, the broad course of study, that's talking about our electives as well as our CTE pathways. These are funds that are available to those electives and pathways throughout the year. So as they order materials, equipment, and things of that nature, this fund will be expended down. That's why it's partially, is because that need is still met throughout the year. So it's not fully expended yet. The next piece for CTE expansion, this is specifically about projects. Like we have one in the spring coming up for the expansion of the welding booths. So this will come and we'll see more expenditures in that area. Summer school hasn't yet taken place yet, so you'll see very little has been expended. Last year, we spent $197,000 on that action, so I expect to spend about the same amount this year. Technology, also you see a little bit less than half, but those funds are available to for student devices, for wireless connections and other infrastructure needs throughout the year. So as replacements are needed or devices need to be fixed, that fund is available for our district. And then we also have the other actions here: web specialist, assessment coordinator, data coordinator. Those are all fully implemented. Those roles have been filled. The Save the Children program, you'll notice that it's fully implemented with an expenditure of zero, and that's because Save the Children, we don't fully support this program. We provide a contribution. And so when the program has sufficient funding, they don't require a contribution from us, and that's what happened this year. They had sufficient increase in funds that they were able to cover the entire cost.
Is that the parents, young parents?
Correct. For the students who are not yet TK or K eligible. And lastly, the SciCon and educational field trips, those are actions that take place mostly in the spring, so we'll see that happening here in the months ahead, which is why you see that these are planned or partially implemented with the expenditures very low. Okay. Goal 2, this is more on the comprehensive academic, social, emotional support systems. And we also saw some metrics demonstrating growth, specifically chronic absenteeism rate. That means that the amount of when a student is chronically absent, this means that they have missed 10% or more of their instructional days. Okay, we saw during COVID that increased exponentially, and every year since we've been chipping away and decreasing and getting better. So we want that percentage rate to be low. We don't want a lot of kids out for chronic absenteeism. So we are continuing to see a decrease in that area, which is good. We saw a 5% decrease overall from last year. I should say from the previous year. Our graduation rate increased by 1.5%, looking at the raw numbers, if in case you're following in the report in your packet. I do want to highlight within the graduate rate increase, that's an overall of 1.5%. We also saw some really specific highlights within that. Students with disabilities saw a 12.9% increase in the graduation rate. So we know that this is one student group that we identify has a variety of needs, but it's great to see that there is growth in that area. We had no students dropping out in 23-24 school year. I had never seen that before in any district. All kids were accounted for. Okay, so that's really good. We don't want any kids slipping through the cracks, not graduating, transferring to another school, dropping out, not finishing up, regardless of the grade level. And so we were very successful with that. Our EL reclassification rate. So I told you the dynamics of the well-developed, we had actually decreased by 3% in the well-developed range. But even though we had fewer students attaining that level 4, we actually saw more students that did achieve that level being reclassified. So we actually saw a reclassification rate of increased by 2.4%, okay? Which means that students who not only scored a 4, they met all of the other criteria to be reclassified. And so that's grades, other test scores, teacher recommendation, and consult with the parents. So we're more successful with the students that did reach a level 4. And with our A through G completion rates, we actually saw more students across nearly all student groups completed the A through G requirements. And if you're familiar with the A through G requirements at the high school, it means that they are eligible to go directly to a 4-year college or university. It means our students are ready for college. Right? CTE is about more careers, A through G for college. So having success in both of those areas is what we strive to do. The greatest growth I want to highlight here also, we're in the areas of students with disabilities, English learners, and long-term English learners. So that's really good that we're having more of our student populations who don't normally see that success rate are the ones who are accelerating. They're increasing in their success rate. For the last 3 indicators or metrics, all students continue to have access to a broad course of study, so we're still at 100% there. And all of our students received all of our schools received a passing score on the facilities inspection tools, which basically it's a walkthrough of all of our schools and facilities and see any areas that need to be corrected. We're all in a good status at each of our schools. That's not to say we don't want to continue some projects going on, but what is necessary through a Williams visit, we meet that criteria. And lastly, I'm going to highlight this one between the next slide and this slide, the health supports provided to students. There were, and the metric that I'm specifically pointing to here is how many contacts did we have between students and nurses? Meaning, how many times was a student seen in the nurse's office? There were over 5,000 more contacts between nurses and students to provide health supports compared to last year, okay? 5,000 more. So, you know, being able to see, do we need our nurses? Do we need that service? Do we need that action continued in the LCAP? I would say yes, the need is high and it continues to grow. And I want to show you here on the next slide, because you're going to look immediately to the bottom and be like, wait a minute, it shows up on this slide too. What's going on? So I'm actually going to start there. So I said more student contacts, right? The flip side of that is that there are fewer unique students going to the nurse. Okay, so if you follow me on that one, is fewer students, but when they go more frequently. Okay, which tells us that they probably have some ongoing medical needs, right? Like, give you an example, diabetes, students need to be, you know, checked regularly, or they have some sort of ongoing, even a moderate medical condition that needs to be monitored. So again, justifying what we need. So it's shown here as a metric demonstrating a decline, but that's offset with more contacts. So the need really still shows that it's there. For the suspension rate, nothing alarming on that. We had a slight increase of 0.5% to the suspension rate. We're still in very good shape. Bright spots within that include foster youth, homeless youth, and students with disabilities not getting suspended at the rates they were the year prior. So we saw improvements in those 3 student groups. The expulsion rate, the only reason it went up, we went from 0 the year before to a total of 1 student being expelled. So it did go up, but by 1 student. The percent of EL students making progress towards English proficiency. So this is slightly different than what I've been sharing in terms of the other metrics. This shows that on the LPAC, there are 4 levels, as I shared before. When students are making progress, that means that they're moving from one level to the next. So I may be at a level 1, maybe I'm a newcomer to the district, and then as I gain more proficiency with academic English, I'm moving to a level 2, move to a level 3, level 4. We want to see our students over about a 5-year span make continued growth within those levels. When students don't, within a 2-year span, they can then be identified for becoming a long-term English learner. Means that they are students who are not making progress on the LPAC. Okay? So that's what we're starting to see here, is that the percent of EL students making progress towards that English proficiency actually decreased by 10%. So we saw fewer students moving up a level, but when they did, we saw the more success rate of being reclassified. So it's showing a divergent trend. Some students are accelerating and getting there, and those who aren't are stalling. So it's creating a divide. So we're gonna address that. That goes back to the needs of what we've identified, what we know, and target those specific areas for student support. And I think I already covered the other ones, so. I will show you here the implementation. It's pretty easy with our counselors, nurses, health aides, behavior aides, noon supervision and such, speech language pathology services. Those are all fully in place. Additionally, we have our EL coordinator supporting the long-term English learner needs, as well as guidance secretaries, our SRO, school resource officer, and MTSS coordinator all in place. The ones here that I want to highlight are the additional ELD support, because there are a variety of other professional development areas going on that we have not had that to date, expending down that 50,000, but that will be coming in for the second half of this year, and I've mentioned before, next year being a great emphasis in this area. And lastly, with the student interventions tutoring, is that we have 2 funds actually. And this is going to go into our planning efforts this spring, going into next year, is that many of our sites utilize Title I funds. Those are our federal funds to provide tutoring services for students. But we had also built in this action into our LCAP to provide a similar same service. So we have two funds. We're trying to expend down the Title I funds because there's a cap as to the carryover. So as those get expended down, then we'll move into the LCAP funding to continue that support, which is why you see 0 right now. But tutoring is available. And then the last two, attendance clerks at each site and media technology specialists for the communication with parents, those are all in place. The last action, the last section is LCAP Goal 3, and specifically it's increasing the level of engagement by parents, family, and community partners. We know this is very important. We want to keep our community members, our parents, family, staff engaged in what we're doing here at school. So there are some things that we put in place, and the metrics to show that we're being successful with that include parent participation in educational workshops. If you're familiar with PIQE, that is one workshop that we've had now for at least the last couple of years, and is very successful. We've actually seen through December of 2024, the total number of parents that participated in workshops through the first half of the year already exceeded what we had all of last year. So we still have 3 schools that are going to go through the PIQE workshops this spring. So that's great growth that we're seeing. We want to continue to see our parents come in because they go over some really critical areas and areas of interest that our parents want to know more about. So they are good partners with us to help communicate what we're doing and some critical things, foundational things, understanding of how parents can participate and know about student services. Additionally, we have increased parent participation in leadership committees, so school site council, ELAC, LCAP committees. We've seen a growth in the number of parents participating. The area where you see on the second half of that slide, the no growth, is parents or families served through the Family Resource Center. And you're probably thinking, where's our Family Resource Center? Exactly, we don't have one. So because we don't have one, we don't serve anybody through the FRC, which is why we still have 0, okay? So with that, you see that the implementation, parent education classes, that's still going on. That's why it's partial implementation, still moving on for the second half of the year. Community liaisons, not all the positions were filled and it should be filled in 24-25. That is a typo in the 24-25 year, which is why you see the mid-year expenditures being lower. But it's also because those positions are multi-funded. So we're gonna see, as we expend the other source of funds that have more of a timeline on it, this is going to be lower than you would normally see. Spanish translators for parent meetings, we also utilize Title I funds, parent participation, so we're dipping into that fund and expending that first before we use the LCAP funding, which is why you see 0 there. And lastly, with our Family Resource Center, it's not implemented, which is why. So quick summary in closing, what next? We're going to keep moving forward with the actions that are taking place, showing positive results. We want to do a deeper dive on the root causes for the English learner and long-term English learner results. So we're going to have some targeted supports, plan in place to support that. And we're going to continue working with not just the LCAP committee, but all stakeholders this spring to get additional input as to what is important, what are the priority areas for our district that we want to include in our plan moving forward so that they are supported. Could be some areas that we want to continue and other areas that we have not launched actions for in the past that we may be able to now. Part of that is going to be, and you're probably thinking, well, if our funding goes down, how do we do that? I'll also show you some examples here with the FRC and tutoring that maybe we don't have the funding as high within those actions, and we can reallocate some of those funds for different actions. So it's still possible, and that'll be part moving forward as to how we're able to pinpoint additional actions. Any questions?
Mr. Zamora?
Yeah, actually, did we pinpoint at what age or what grade do we see the division between the EL learners?
So the long-term English learners, depending if you're looking at the CDE definition versus and by CDE is the California Department of Education, they say after 5 years the students can be at risk, but on the dashboard it says 6 years. So it's really about that 4th through 6th grade level is that we start seeing that if students are stalling, now they're being identified for long-term English learner. So that's the critical piece.
And you answered the second one, if we could reallocate some of these resources or
That's
monies
part of the
into-
process of talking with the stakeholder groups is what are our funding priorities, and then we reflect, and I really actually like the mid-year report because it gives us a chance before we go into the next LCAP development cycle to say what's working, and did we allocate sufficient funds? Do we need to do more? Do we need to do less? What else can we do with those funds if we move some of them over?
Right, thank you.
The Family Resource Center, so we're not funding it, but what are families missing out on that, since we're not funding it, or have anybody handling it in the moment?
The vision for the FRC, I'll just speak to it very, very briefly. But I think the main idea for an FRC is to be a hub, a community hub for services, for information, a go-to place that our community members can go to. Also, like other districts that do have an FRC, use it for a referral process, and it could be for a variety of things. It could be for mental health services, could be for dental services, could be for, what are some events that are going on in the community. So it's your one-stop shop to get your questions answered, to get information, and to know where to go if you have a definite need. So what we're doing in the meantime is we're utilizing our community liaisons and other positions to help share some of that information. It's not as centralized as it could be through an FRC. So it does still require some coordination, but that's how we're handling it right now.
Alvarez?
When the LCAP first came out, there was a worry about not spending the money, and then you come up for renewal and losing money because you didn't spend the money. Is that still the case?
No, actually, and I'm glad that's not the case, because sometimes some actions are planned, but even out of your control, it may not happen. So when you have an unspent, say, dollar or dollars on the LCAP, it doesn't have to get paid back, nor does it get absorbed in the general fund. What actually happens is it rolls over into the following year's LCAP. So it still has to be used for those same purposes. It just shows an increase for that year. The thing that we have to take into consideration then is that once the carryover is expended, then you go back to what it was, just base funding. So you shouldn't have any long-term commitments if you had a one-time carryover.
For the tutoring that we do have available, is it at all sites? And is it after school, during school, and who's responsible for?
So each site has a plan for tutoring services. Sometimes it's with their own teacher. It also can be one teacher servicing multiple classes. In some cases, it could also be a Saturday for some of our older kids. It's tutoring, and it's outside of the regular school day. So it could be after school or on the weekend.
Okay. Is that being shared for each site? Is that being shared out on Parent Square, or how are parents notified that tutoring is available for students?
I can't speak to the specific about each school. Our principals can probably do that better. But yes, when tutoring is available, usually it's talking with the specific student and parent to say we have tutoring available for you, because it's not just come one, come all. We want to have that targeted support for the students who need it the most, and not have some huge groups because just need some supervision in the afternoon. I'm going to place my child there. So really, it's done on a referral basis. It's like it could be through an SST process. So student study teams, that student needs a little bit more, we're going to refer you to tutoring. Could be a parent asking the front office saying, my child is struggling in math or another content area. What do you have available? Things like that. Those are the ways to get the tutoring word out.
Okay.
So to add on that, Mr. Cho, I know that some of the teachers have actually sent letters home with our kids saying that they're offering these services, and they provide the times and everything with it. So if there is a student that might need a little bit of help, they do reach out and let them know that there is services provided for them.
And that's a great point, because not every teacher is available for tutoring. So it's who's available at what days of the week, what time of the year, and some of it may follow, say, like a benchmark period or some sort of testing cycle period to identify, okay, these students need more help. We're going to offer tutoring during this portion of the year. So it varies. Wish I had a clearer answer for you.
So no news is good news?
Possibly, yeah. If students doing well, they're probably not going to get referrals for tutoring if they don't need it.
Yeah, we're meeting this Thursday as a team, so I can get a report out to see what each side is doing.
Thank you. No more questions. Thank you.
On your tutoring also, are there Are we tracking to see how effective that tutoring is, based on how it's done? I know sometimes a child just needs like one thing of just one-on-one to get it, and then they're good. And sometimes, you know, having a whole classroom or more, you know, so many kids, it's
Right.
too distracting or they just can't get it. Are we somehow checking on that?
There's no universal way of checking it right now because, as you've noted, the duration may be different, as well as what the student receives at that tutoring can differ. So it's really, as a student comes in, their teacher should be able to measure whether that tutoring helped. So usually it's a local measure. Did the student get it? Their next assignment, did they perform better? Or the next test, did they perform better? But it's not anything where we're gathering data as a school or as a district based off that tutoring. I like where you're going with it, is how do we prove then that that tutoring is effective? And there should be a way, and that could be something we discuss there with our principal team.
I like that.
And the other thing, when you're touching on the Family Resource Center, I know that one district, they actually closed theirs. So, you know, when we start to look at that, we need to make sure that we're not making the same errors. I don't want to say mistakes, because it could have been just a simple error. And hopefully, eventually, we can get that together. But I know we have several different people working with, you know, providing resources. I know it's not a one-stop shop, but I think we try as hard as we can, especially with Iris.
Yeah, Ms. Flores is spearheading a lot of that support and that coordination.
So, yeah, thank you very much. Great information.
Okay.
Things are looking well.
Quick question.
Yeah.
For the tutoring, are we partnered with any organization that helps us with our tutoring services, or is it just our teachers who lead the tutoring on the campus?
Yeah, right now we're only going through our teachers, so our own instructional staff to provide it. I think years ago, maybe 10, 15 years ago, there was the idea of the Supplemental Educational Services, if you're familiar with SES, and that was funded by federal funds. And so those were partners, companies, other services that contracted with schools and district to provide that. That is no longer the case. Districts who do receive Title I funds no longer are required to do that because it comes at a really high price, for one, and they find that the data on there show that there wasn't a high correlation between that service and student performance, which is why that was dropped. So now we utilize our own teachers who know our students the best.
Are there any other questions? Okay, thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
12.3, approval to attend Boost Conference on April 29th through May 2nd, 2025 at Palm Springs, California.
Motion.
Second.
Motion by John Alvarez, is that correct?
Yeah.
Second by Mercedes Zamora.
Correct.
Are there any question? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried 5-0.
13.0, personnel. 13.1, approval of certificated personnel, item 13.1.1.
Motion.
I second.
Motion by Mr. Alvarez, second by Mr. Espinoza. Are there any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried 5-0.
13.2, approval of extracurricular activity, coaching personnel, item 13.2.1 through item 13.2.3.
I motion.
Second.
We have a motion by Freddie Espinoza, second by Sabrina Gomez. Are there any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried 5-0.
13.3, personnel action report, information only. 13.4, approval of revised job description requirement change for reading specialist.
Motion.
Second.
Is there a second?
Yes, second.
Oh, okay. We have a motion by John Alvarez, second by Mercedes Zamora. Are there any questions? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried 5-0.
13.5, adoption of resolution number 7/11/25 for reduction of vacant classified school services for 2025 through 2026 school year.
Motion.
Second.
Motion by John Alvarez, second by Sabrina Gomez. Are there any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried 5-0.
13.6, adoption of resolution number 8/11/25 for intention to terminate certificated service due to a reduction of particular kinds of services.
Motion.
Second.
We have a motion by John Alvarez, second by Sabrina Gomez. Are there any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried 5-0.
13.7, adoption of resolution number 9/11/25 for placing a classified employee on a 39-month re-employment list.
I motion.
Second.
We have a motion by Freddie Espinoza, second by Merced Zamora. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried 5-0.
14.0, board business. 14.1, 2025 ballot for CSBA delegate assembly.
I motion.
Motion for the two as recommended.
Second.
And Mr. Zamora, was that a second?
Yes.
We have a motion by Freddie Espinoza, second by Merced Zamora. Are there any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Abstain.
Abstain? Okay, we have 401.
15.0, business services.
14.2.
Oh, 14.2. Oh, yeah, this one's important. Consideration of any item any member of the board wishes to have on a future agenda or provide a written update.
Mr. Zamora?
None.
Espinoza?
Nope.
Alvarez?
No.
Gomez?
Just if we could just have the feedback after your meeting with the principals on the tutoring.
Feedback on tutoring. Anything else?
That's it for me.
We need to see dates for our tour.
Mr. Melendez, can we work on some dates that would be appropriate so that we can do a board tour of sites?
Trying to look for some sunny days. I've done it in the pouring rain, let me tell you, it's no fun.
Ms. Mendez,
Yes.
I don't know if like this is out of the norm to ask or just like something to, I don't know, because we have our awesome principals here. And I would just like to hear from them if they have anything like just encouraging to say about their school or just anything that they like to share from their school site. I don't know if that's out of the norm, but just anything, I don't know, maybe
You want
like
to put something like that on the agenda for next?
yeah, or if they like to put on the agenda.
Just, we need a,
So principals, if you guys can get a 1.5 to 2 minute presentation for next board
Board
meeting, just a quick hoorah, things that are going super well at your sites.
do we want the good, bad, and the ugly?
We could do good, and then if they feel like there's
It's
something
all
we
gonna
need
be
to
good,
know,
right?
they'll let Mendez know, and we could all talk about it.
Okay?
Okay.
Sounds good. Thank you, sir.
That's a good one.
Anything else?
Open up a bag of worms, okay.
Okay. Go ahead.
Okay. 15.0, business services. 15.1, approval to attend Super Co-op Summit 2024-2025 on February 18th through 19th, 2025 at Lodi, California.
Motion.
Second.
We have a motion by John Alvarez, second by Sabrina Gomez. Are there any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried 5-0.
All right. 15.2, approval of Farmersville High School FHS Central Plant HVAC Replacement Chiller Upgrade Project Number 80-08160, explanation of project modifications and change orders.
Motion with the question.
Okay, we have a motion with the question. Is there a second?
I'll second his motion with the question.
Mr. Alvarez, your question?
Yeah, question, Tony's got the answer, I don't know if he does or not, but, so basically they went in to install some equipment and cut things out, and apparently it didn't match up, so we're paying for it. Is that what, that's what's going on?
There's a lot of misconceptions in the blueprints. So, a lot of things that weren't found in the blueprints, during the original construction, that came out here on the blueprints, that created a lot of confusion.
They just cut right in it and then thought about it later?
And there was, conduits and stuff that laid,
Uh-huh.
that was not aligned with the
Yeah,
blueprints.
buried in the cement itself.
Yes.
Okay, understandable. Okay,
You stay with your motion?
yes.
Sabrina, you stay with second?
Yes.
Any other questions? All in favor?
All right,
Opposed? Motion carried 5-0.
Okay. 17.0, future meeting updates. 17.1, February 25th, 2025, and March 11th, 2025. Okay. 20.0, adjournment to closed session, and we will be going over 20.1, conference with labor negotiator, GC 54957.6. It is the intention of the board to meet in closed session to review its position and instruct its designated reps, agency designated representatives, Manuel Mendez, name of organization, FTA, CSEA, management. 20.2, public employee, discipline, dismissal, release, complaint, Government Code 54957. 20.3, conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation, significant exposure to litigation pursuant to subdivision D2 and E of section 54956.9, one case.
Thank you. We'll be going into closed session at 8:01. You can excuse whoever you like.
Administrators, thank you so very much.
Okay, not 8:59. Oh, it's still 8:59. We're returning into open session.
21.0, action taken on closed session items. 21.1, conference with labor negotiator, GC 54957.6. It is the intention of the board to meet in closed session, to review its position and to instruct its designated reps. Agency designated representatives, Manuel Mendez, name of organization, FTA, CSEA, management. No action taken. 21.2, public employee, discipline, dismissal, release, complaint, Government Code 54957. Okay, reporting out resolution 10-2-11-25. During the closed session held earlier tonight on a motion by Mr. John Alvarez, seconded by Mr. Freddie Espinoza, the board voted to approve resolutions to release and reassign 357678859 administrators at the conclusion of the current school year pursuant to Education Code Section 44951.
Is there a motion?
Motion?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Motion by John Alvarez, second by Freddie Espinoza. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried 5-0.
I didn't finish reading that part. Do I have to finish?
Does, you have to,
Yes.
go ahead and finish.
The
reading.
superintendent has been authorized to issue the appropriate notices of release and reassignments as required by law. The board members voted as follows.
Before.
That's fine.
Okay, we voted on that one. Okay.
Resolution number 11-2-11-25. During closed session held earlier tonight on a motion by Mr. John Alvarez, seconded by Mr. Mercedes Zamora, the board voted to approve resolutions to release and reassign 47673897172 administrators at the conclusion of the current school year pursuant to Education Code Section 44951. The superintendent has been authorized to issue the appropriate notices of release and reassignment as required by law. The board members voted as follows.
Is there a motion?
Motion?
Second.
We have John Alvarez with the motion, Mercedes Zamora with the second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried 5-0.
21.3, conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation, significant exposure to litigation pursuant to subdivision D2 and E of section 54956.9. No action taken.
22.0, adjournment at 9:02.
Motion?
Second.
Motion by John Alvarez, second by Freddie Espinoza.
Correct.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried 5-0. Meeting adjourned. Thank you very